Hello everybody, welcome to Totally Tabled. My name is Shaggy, and today I'm doing a solo playthrough of Earthborne Rangers. This is a cooperative adventure card game with a epic campaign. So I'm only going to be able to show you the very beginning of this game in this playthrough. And in order to minimize spoilers, I'm just going to show you the very first mission of the campaign. So if you absolutely want zero spoilers, then you're going to need to shut this video off. But I'm telling you, this is the very beginning. It's not spoiling much. And it's going to give me a chance to teach the game as I play, which is what I like to do on this channel. Let's go ahead and jump right in, because I have everything set up for the game. Now, there is quite a lot of setup when you're first getting started, because you need to create your character. You're first going to pick your character's aspect card. There's 12 different ones to choose from, and they sort of act as your character's stats, defining your character's strengths and weaknesses. These characters are known as Rangers, and my Ranger has high focus but low spirit. That means they're really good at concentrating and focusing on a single task, but they really lack that sense of self and knowing themselves. The other stats are awareness, which is basically your character's ability to sort of observe the world around them, and fitness, which is their strength and endurance, basically how well they can deal with physical demands. You're then going to build your Ranger's deck using their personality stats as a guide. I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but basically you're going to pick your character's background and specialty. There's 4 different backgrounds and 4 different specialties, and that's going to define which cards you can select to add to your deck. Cards have costs in order to play them that are based on these stats, and so you want to make sure that you get cards that you're actually going to have the stats to be able to play. Depending on your specialty, you'll get to pick between 2 different roles. That's just going to give your Ranger a special ability. You get to pick an outside interest, which is just basically any card from any of the other specialties or backgrounds. And then you're also going to pick 4 personality cards. At the end of all that deck construction, you'll be left with a deck of 30 cards where you have 15 unique cards with 2 copies of each. Then you also have a role and, of course, your aspect card. And that will basically define your starting Ranger. The character I created has a background as an artisan. She's all about making things with her hands, creating tools, inventing things. And so her focus is really about making gadgets and attaching them and using them to do cool things. Her specialty is as an explorer. So she's using all these things that she creates in order to move about the world and explore, discover new places and new things. And for that reason, I chose the role of an undaunted seeker. Once you've done all that, you just want to shuffle up your deck and you get a starting hand of 6 cards, which I've already dealt out for myself here. You also want to get energy tokens matching your stats. And the game comes with little colored tokens, but I'm just using dice here to keep track of that because I find that to be a little bit more convenient. We then have our 2 player aid cards, and that's our area all set up. We can now just jump into the story, and that's going to help us complete the setup for our first mission. Cresting the gentle grassy hill, you see the unmistakable silhouette of Lone Tree Station rise out of the highland plains before you. Lone Tree Station is aptly named. The single, massive Giga Redwood towers above the hills and swaying grass that surround it. You can just make out the eaves and balconies among the gnarled bark, doors tucked into the winding roots, and hanging gardens suspended from branches. As you draw closer, a woman in a freshly pressed cloak steps out from the main entrance and waves. Calypsa, your mentor for the past 9 months, strides toward you with a man who looks just about your age at her heels. "Hello," she calls out. "You made it. Just look at you." She claps your hands, her smile warm and her grip firm. "I'm glad to finally have you here," she says. Then she turns. "This is Cal Ivor. I trained Cal last year, right before I started training you." Cal Ivor gives you a nod in greeting. "A pleasure," he says. We're then instructed to put the Lone Tree Station location card into play. Calypsa heads back to the station with you and Cal in tow. She speaks back over her shoulder. Please make yourself at home, explore the hanging gardens, find spirit speaker Nal and Cordo, and strike up a conversation. Get to know the place. After you spend some time here at the station, you should head over to White Sky, she says. In fact, High Pimpot has some juniper biscuits baking right now. His food is legendary around these parts. Once those biscuits are ready and you've had a chance to poke around, take a parcel over to White Sky and offer them to the people you meet. It's been at least a year since our neighbors have enjoyed the company of rangers bearing treats. She turns to look at Cal. What do you think, Cal? Good way to get started? Cal grins at you in a way that you can't quite describe as a sneer. Handing out baked goods? I think that's perfectly suited to their abilities, he says. So now we have to make a choice. We either have to tell Cal what he can do with his condescending attitude, or we have to ignore him. Oh, we're definitely telling Cal off. Calypsa glares. Recall the wisdom of our ancestors, she says. Treat each other with kindness. Unkind, she punches you on the shoulder. On Ness, she punches Cal's. And now the instructions tell us to gain the biscuit delivery mission, and then we put it next to the location card into an area known as the surroundings. Continuing a time-honored ranger tradition, Calypsa has tasked you with delivering biscuits to the people of White Sky as your first mission. Find High Pimpot at Lone Tree Station. He'll give you the biscuits and send you on your way. During this mission, use Journal Entry 91 instead of the normal entries for High Pimpot, Cordo, Nal, and Quizivas. It then says to travel away from Lone Tree Station while High Pimpot is in play, and then we can read entry 1.01. We're then told to put the weather card A Perfect Day into play. We're also going to place 3 cloud tokens. I'm going to use dice instead of tokens for this playthrough. Calypsa turns to you. Cal and I are headed out into the valley. We'll be on Shadow Patrol. That is, we'll never be too far away from you for the next few weeks. You shouldn't need our help, of course, Cal says. I can tell by looking at you that you're more than capable. Farewell for now, Calypsa says, and starts down the eastern path away from Lone Tree. Spirits guide you. Follow your instincts. She and Cal walk steadily out of sight. Now we're instructed to explore Lone Tree Station to find High Pimpot, retrieve the juniper biscuits, and learn what to do next. We're told to create our path deck by shuffling together the Woods deck and the Lone Tree deck. When shuffled together, that's going to be 17 cards in total, and one of those cards is High Pimpot, which we need to complete our mission. Now we're going to look to the back of the Lone Tree location card, and we're going to perform the setup instructions there. You can see there that book with the number 2. That means that there's a little section that we can read. Visible for miles around, Lone Tree is a single, enormous giga redwood rising out of the thick grass of a high prairie. From far away, the tree is all you can see, but as you come closer, you can see the rest of the station. The large box garden plots hanging from the branches, the airship Swift moored to its dock in the tree's crown. The doors and windows carved into the trunk and peeking out from amongst the roots. Lone Tree Station has been the base of operations for the Rangers ever since the people came to the valley. And ever since you became a ranger, it's been your home. The card then tells us to search the path deck for the next predator and discard it, which I have already done. And then it tells the lead ranger to draw 1 path card. One thing I forgot is that when you draw your starting hand of cards, you are allowed to discard as many as you want and redraw back up to 6. Essentially have a little bit of a mulligan. Normally I would do that, but I kind of like the hand that I got. So I'm going to stick with this, and now we can finish setup by doing the last thing that it said on the location card, which is to draw one of our path cards. Okay, we drew a Sitka buck. And the first thing we want to pay attention to is this little arrow right here. Each card is either going to have an arrow pointing down or an arrow pointing up, and that's telling us which of these two regions to place the card. We have this region closest to us, which is known as within reach, and then we have a space up here, which is known as along the way. This arrow is pointing down, so this buck is going to be within reach of us. Now there's a bunch of information on this card. I'll explain all this stuff as we go along. And there we go. That is setup officially completely done. We can now start with the first phase of each round, which is the path cards phase. At the beginning of each round, we're going to draw one of the path cards. This path card we drew as part of setup of the location. So now we start the round by drawing another one. Ooh, okay, we got an overgrown thicket. The arrow is pointing up, so that means it's along the way. This overgrown thicket is a bit of a problem because, as you can see here, it has the keyword obstacle. That means that this card is basically keeping us from interacting with any cards that are in the surroundings, which is sort of the third area. Each one of these rows represents sort of further and further away from us. So until we deal with this, we're not going to be able to interact with the location card. That'll make sense in a second. So there we go. We're done with the path card phase. Now we get to do the ranger turns phase, where we get to take actions by spending this energy. We use the energy here on our aspect card in order to play cards from our hand or perform tests. Tests might be written on cards in play, but we also have these 4 common tests that we can perform. Each test requires us to spend a specific type of energy and also lets us modify it by spending approaches, which are these 4 symbols that you see on our cards. You'll see how tests work in a second, but before we do any tests, I want to play some cards from my hand because I got a bunch of my gear. And as I said before, my character is all about gearing up. So the first card I want to play is this pocketed belt pouch. You can see up here it costs 1 awareness to play. So I'll just spin this down. And I'm going to place it here in my gear area. If you look up here, there's this little shaded in square. You can see some of the gear has 1 of those, and some, like this functional replica, have 2, as well as this boundary sensor. That's known as the equip value, and you can only have 5 equip value max amongst your gear. That's the full amount of gear that you can have equipped at one time. But what this pocketed belt pouch lets me do is reduce the equip value of your gear by 1 to a minimum of 1. So that means I'll actually be able to equip this boundary sensor and it'll only take 1 space. That's pretty cool. Now, if you look here, you'll see this 3 pockets. That means I need to place 3 tokens on this. And again, I'm going to use dice instead of tokens. So I'll just put a 3 there. That's essentially how many times I can use its special ability down here, which says open your belt pouch and reach inside to search your ranger deck for a gear and add it to your hand. So this is basically a test that I can perform in order to search my deck for any gear card. But I have a limited number of times that I can do it. That's all. Great. So now that that's there, we're going to spend 1 of our fitness to get this boundary sensor installed. Like I said, that's now only taking 1 space, and it has 4 tokens on it. This is going to be a big help to us when we need to travel, which will happen here in a little bit. I then think I'm going to go ahead and do this functional replica, which is going to take 2 focus. Put 3 tokens on that. This is great because it's going to let me use one of my other gear, but actually use the token here rather than the token on the thing. And then while we're at it, I'm going to use my 1 spirit. So I'll just place it there when it's exhausted to attach this mod. Now it says to attach to one of your equipped gear. So I'm going to put it on my functional replica. I'll actually stick it down here. So now whenever I use this, I will get to soothe 1 fatigue. And I'll explain what fatigue is here in a little bit as well. Now I could also equip these universal power cells. I might do that, but first I think I might want to try to perform some tests. Now, as you can see, during this phase of the game, we're able to just take as many actions as we want until we're done taking actions. Whether by choice or if we just run out of energy. I think I do want to do a test, and the first one I want to do is right here on our pocketed belt pouch. This will be a great way to show off how tests work. So it says down here, awareness plus that little triangle symbol, which stands for reason. So awareness plus reason, we would then use one pocket, which is one of these tokens, in order to perform this test. So we're going to submit a certain amount of what they call effort by using these two stats. And we have to use at least one of the energy of that type. So we have to use at least one awareness, and we only have one. So we'll put that in. And then I also want to put in this symbol here that's on our universal power cells, that reason symbol. So we just discard that card, and that's going to give us an extra effort. So we now put 2 effort into this test. If I wanted to, I could also use my inventive card, but I want to hold on to that for now. So I'm going to stop. I'm going to put in 2 effort. We now have to draw one of these challenge cards. Since this test involved awareness, we look at that and we're getting a -1 effort for this test. 2 minus 1, we have a total of 1 effort. We would then look to see how much effort we needed in order to succeed. And since it doesn't specify, that means that the effort we needed was 1. So we actually succeeded. We got enough effort. And that means that we can perform the ability, which says to open your belt and reach inside to search your ranger deck for a gear and add it to your hand. And I know exactly what gear I'm looking for. This phonoscopic headset. And now we're not done with this challenge card yet because we have to look down here at this symbol. We got a sun symbol. And we're going to go and we're going to look at the cards in play. And any card that has a sun symbol on it, we're going to activate whatever it says. So we start by looking at our weather card. No sun there. We would then look to the location and then to our mission. And right there, we have the sun symbol, so we have to resolve it. It says, if Kuizi Voss is not in the path discard, she is drawn by baked goods. Search the valley set for Kuizi and put her into play. So you just go through the deck of cards that are known as the valley cards, and you will find Kuizi. I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly, but in our game, she's going to be known as Kuizi. The arrow is pointing down towards us, so she's going to be in that first row near to us. And if you look up there, there's a very faint little book symbol there. That means that there's a little passage that we need to read. Normally we would read passage 80, but remember our mission. It says that for this mission, we need to read passage 91 instead. You feel a tug on your backpack and turn to see a young girl suddenly walking beside you. Hi, she says. Do you smell something? Is Hi Pimpop baking his famous juniper biscuits? Can I have one? Which way to the kitchen? It then says we can clear Kuizi with, and that symbol stands for progress, in order to help her find the kitchen. So what does that mean? Well, when we interact with cards or when cards interact with other cards, they can collect either harm tokens or progress tokens. And in these little boxes here, it shows how many of each is required in order for the card to get cleared, basically be discarded. So for Kuizi here, you can see if she collects 3 harm, then that would clear her, or 3 R of progress. And the R just stands for Rangers. So if you were playing a multiplayer game, that number would be higher. We can ignore the R because we're playing solo. So if we can get 3 progress tokens on her, then we can clear her. And for this mission, that will mean that we helped her find her way to the kitchen. So how do we get progress tokens on some of these characters? Well, she has a test here that we could do, which would involve asking her about her adventures in the valley. Or we also have a common test here that involves a spirit and the connection symbol, we can also use that to get progress onto beings. We're not going to worry about that at the moment. Now, I also want to point out that Queasy has a bunch of keywords here. She has fatiguing, which basically means when we rest, we're going to have to take a fatigue because she's just so exhausting to be around. She also has friendly, which means that she is basically the opposite of an obstacle. She's not stopping us or fatiguing us from doing tests. And she's persistent, which basically means when we travel away from this location, she won't be discarded like most of the other cards would be. She's going to kind of tag along. Okay, so now we're done resolving the sun on our mission card. We're now going to come down into this row. There's nothing. And then in this row, we have this buck. It says that if there's another active buck, then we would exhaust that being. And exhausting just means turning it 90 degrees. But there isn't another buck, so we can ignore that. And now Queasy also has one. She says that we need to either discard a progress or a token from a plant, an insect, or a gear. Wow, so we're going to need to discard one of these tokens. Let's just go ahead and lose one of our boundary sensors. That's okay. Okay, there we go. We've resolved all the sun abilities, and that's it. That was our test done. It let us get this phonosonic headset, which now I'd like to actually spend our one focus in order to equip it. This thing is great. It's going to help us when we do scouting, which I'm hoping to do in the next round. We have one more fitness left, but I don't really have anything I want to do with that energy, so I'm going to rest. I'm going to finish taking actions and rest for the round. Now, at this point, if we had done everything we needed to do in order to travel to a new location, we could do that. I'll explain how that works in a little bit, but we're not traveling anywhere for the moment. Because we rested, we are going to get fatigued because of Queasy there. When you fatigue, you just take the top card off your deck and you put it into a separate fatigue pile. And you want to just keep that face down. You don't want to look at that card. Fatiguing is bad because our deck kind of represents the energy that we have for that day. Once we run out of cards, we'll be forced to end the day. So the more fatigue we get, the less we can do in that day. Okay, the last thing we need to do for the end of the round is just to refresh. Any cards that were exhausted would now get readied. We get back all of our energy. So we're going to get our 2 awareness, 1 spirit, 3 focus, and 2 fitness. We get to draw one of our ranger cards. And we need to look for any refresh abilities. And actually, our weather card has one. We have to discard one of the cloud tokens on the card. Once those run out, we'll flip the card over and we'll have some new kind of weather. And there we go. That was the end of the round. We now get to start round 2. The first thing we do each round is draw a path card. Look at this. We found Cordo, the Ranger Veteran. He comes in within reach in this nearest row. And he has that book. But again, we're ignoring that number. We're going to 91. Glad you made it through training. The grizzled man sticks out his hand and shakes yours firmly. The name's Cordo, in case you forgot. I understand you have a lot of new faces to take in. So if we clear Cordo with progress, we can speak to him further. Okay, I think the first thing I want to do right now is to draw more cards from my Ranger deck. We played a lot of them last round and we're kind of low on cards at the moment. Now, the way we can do that is through this common test here, remembering, which is going to take focus plus reason. And that happens to be something our character excels at. So I think we're going to use 1 focus. And then we're going to use this inventive card, which has reason, but it has a little asterisk there that says that the number of reason on this attribute is equal to the number of focus in your energy pool, which at this point is 2. So we'll play this for the 2 reason plus the 1 focus. That's 3 effort. We drew the challenge card, which has a 0 focus. So we succeeded with 3 effort. We only needed 1. So we're going to be able to remember our training in order to scout our ranger cards equal to your effort, and then draw one. So scouting means we get to draw cards off the top of our deck. In this case, we had 3 effort, so we'll get to draw 3 cards. And we can then place these cards either on the top or the bottom of our deck in any order that we want. These aren't exactly the cards that I was looking for. I think we're going to put these 2 on the bottom. We will put this one on top and then draw it back into our hand. This is the same card that we had before, which is fine. I think this is going to let us remember again, and we can keep trying to cycle through this deck and get what we need. But we now have to resolve the challenge card. We got another sun. Kweezy is already out, so we don't need to do that. There's not another buck in play, so we don't have to worry about that. But look at this. She is going to force us to use a token. And I'm just realizing when I did this before, I forgot to spend the pocket, so that should really be at 2. Okay, we'll use another one of these. That's fine. Maybe we should think about getting rid of her so she doesn't keep using our tokens. No, I think we're going to try to ignore her for now. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to really struggle to remember. And this time, I'm going to spend both of those focus. Or no, sorry. I'm going to spend one. No. Let's just use both of these. We're going to save that card. So we're putting 2 effort into this. Okay, we got another 0 focus. So we're going to get to scout 2 cards. But I'm going to use my phonoscopic headset. It says that you can exhaust it when a ranger scouts in order to increase the number of cards scouted by 1. So now rather than scouting 2, we'll be able to scout 3. And in fact, instead of exhausting it, I'm going to use the functional replica. We can just use one of those tokens, and this is going to let us resolve the chosen gear's effect as if you had used a token from it and or exhausted it. So that's going to let us use this without exhausting it, which is cool. Furthermore, because this is favored, this is one of our favored equipped gear, after we use one of these tokens, we can soothe 1 fatigue, which basically means taking the top fatigue card and just adding it to your hand. How cool is that? So we're scouting 3. We're going to put these 2 on the bottom. And we'll put this on top and then draw it. There we go. Great. But unfortunately, sun again. We're going to be losing another one of our tokens here. This is super annoying. I guess we're going to keep losing this one. Man. Okay, enough messing around. Our mission is to go find High Pimpot and get those juniper biscuits. He is somewhere in this deck, and the best way to find him is to do a search test, which is the test that's on that Lone Tree Station location card. We're going to be using awareness plus connection. I was hoping to try to get a connection card, but I couldn't find one, so we're just going to have to go with awareness. And we have 2, so we'll just spend it all. We're going to put 2 effort into it. Now, because this test is occurring in the surroundings, we're having to essentially pass through all the cards that are near to us, as well as all the cards that are in the along the way row. And every single readied card that you pass in order to take a test, you're going to have to take some fatigue equal to that card's presence. So if we were to pretend that these cards were just regular cards, like they were all like this buck, then we would have to take 2 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 fatigue, 5 fatigue, right? That's the presence number. But these 2 cards are friendly, which means that we don't take fatigue from them. That's what the friendly keyword means. And these overgrown thicket, that would normally keep us from doing a test beyond it because it has that obstacle keyword. we would have to perform the test that's on it in order to get rid of it, clear that card away before we could take tests beyond it. But my Undaunted Seeker has a special ability where I can exhaust her roll card, and it says that when you perform a test, dodge one card. Dodging allows us to basically treat the card as if it wasn't there for the purposes of taking tests. So we can dodge this overgrown thicket. It's no longer preventing us from going there. And now there's only one card in our way, that buck, which has a presence of 1. So we'll be taking 1 fatigue in order to do this search. If we were performing a test in this along the way area, then only cards that were within reach would give us fatigue. And when we were performing tests on our equipment or in cards in this first row, then we don't have to worry about fatigue. Also keep in mind that if a card becomes exhausted, then it no longer is preventing us or fatiguing us when we take tests elsewhere. Okay, so we paid our 1 fatigue, and now we're going to perform this test. 2 effort. We do our challenge card. Excellent. 0 awareness. So we have a total of 2 effort. In order to succeed in this test, we needed 1 effort or more. So now we're going to get to scout the path deck equal to our effort, and then, again, either put them on the bottom or the top, and then draw a path card. And once again, I'm going to use my phonoscopic headset to get a +1 to our scouting. And, I should have exhausted the functional replica when I used it. See how it says exhaust to use 1 charge. And then I'm going to now exhaust the headset. So we'll get to scout 3 path cards. Oh, there we go. There he is. Hi, Pimpot, the chef. I say, let's go ahead and put all of these on top in that order. And then we draw 1, and it's going to be the chef. Hey, man, we were looking for you. You come across a massive pile of diced and sliced vegetables, roots, and tubers. Occasionally, more slices fly through the air to land on top of the pile. Back already? A voice says from behind the vegetable pile. I told you, there's no silverfin curry to be had until the fish has marinated for at least 3 hours. A head pokes out from behind the pile. Oh, it's you. I thought you were Elder Thrush. She gets so impatient on Silverfin Curry Day. Calypso sent you for the biscuits, eh? They're just out of the oven. Let me know when you're ready to leave, and we'll get you and those biscuits to the good people of White Sky straight away. It now tells us to travel away from Lone Tree Station while High Pimpot is in play in order to complete the mission. Okay, first we have to resolve the bottom part of the challenge card here, which is this red symbol. We can look through here, and all of our characters have this. The buck says that if there is an active doe, then the buck would charge. Well, we don't have an active doe, so we can ignore that. And our 3 characters here would have something happen to them if there was an active predator out. This buck is actually prey. You can see here we discarded one of the predator cards that was in the deck as part of setup. This is meant to be a relatively safe location, so luckily no predator. When a predator shows up, you really want to take care of them, because if you don't, you run the risk of bad things happening to the other characters. And that's how they can take harm and get cleared through harm. Okay, so that was wildly successful. And now if we wanted, there's nothing to stop us from hanging out here a little bit longer, doing some of these tests on the different characters to talk to them more, you know, searching around this area some more to find, you know, some more characters out. Who knows what we could discover. But for the sake of this playthrough, let's say, hey, we are trying to complete our objective. We have this sole focus. I think that's very thematically appropriate for the character that I've created. She's not really a people person, and she gets very focused on the task at hand. So I think she would, having found High Pimpot, she would immediately want to complete the mission by traveling to White Sky. So in order to do that, you need to have enough progress tokens on your current location card. And it shows there we're going to need 3R, so for us, 3 progress tokens. Now, how do you put progress on your location card? Well, you use the Traverse Common Test. You can see here we're going to use fitness plus that symbol means exploration. And in order to succeed, we need to get X, where X stands for the presence of the location card. And right here, that's just a 1. So to succeed, we need to get at least 1 effort. And if we were to fail, we would suffer an injury. Injuries are bad. If you get 3 injuries, then you have to end the day and you take a injury card into your deck. But I don't think we need to worry about that because we have 2 fitness we can add, and we have this bold, which is giving us 2 exploration. That's a whopping 4 effort that we're putting towards this. And once again, this thicket is in our way. And we can't use our roll card. We already used that to do 1 dodge. But luckily, we got this card, a Leaf in the Breeze. Oh, but I don't have the awareness to play it. I don't have the awareness to play it yet. So I can't dodge that thicket. So I'm going to need to rest first. Let's just go ahead and rest. We'll untap everything. Everything becomes unexhausted. We draw a card. The weather goes down 1. We lose 1 cloud token there. And we get 1 fatigue because she's still annoying us. Get our energy back. And now we're going to draw a path card. Okay. We found a pretty cool location here. It's got a book marked 42. So let's find out about the topside mast. High atop Lone Tree Station, you'll find a series of circular platforms of polished wood and forged carbon. During your training on clear, windless days, these platforms served as a refuge. You would often spend your time in the afternoon bathing there in the sun, sitting in quiet contemplation, and looking out over the mirrored surface of the white sky lake. You'd also look wistfully at the airship known as the Swift, its hull gleaming in the sun, as Ben Aman would climb aboard and launch it into the air. The legs of the vehicle would compress and then extend with a sudden movement, propelling it upwards with tremendous force. Then, once it reached the apex, its wings would unfurl, and the glider would soundlessly soar towards the horizon, steadily descending as it flew towards its destination. Calypso told you and the other initiates that it was prone to roll and crash in inclement weather, and if you flew it any great distance, its energy cells would drain, and the Swift would grow inert, unable to launch for days before the cells recharged. All this was clearly meant to dissuade you from taking the Swift out on your own, but when you look up at the airship, you can't help but feel a surge of excitement. To soar high above the valley would surely be exhilarating, if not a little terrifying. Now that you're a full-fledged ranger, perhaps you can convince the crew to take you for a ride. So we can clear the topside mast by placing our concentration token on the card in order to take Swift for a ride. Well, that's cool. So we can try to convince them, with focus plus connection. And you would need a 3. Well, we have 3 focus, but we don't have any connection. It would be a little risky. Definitely sounds like something we might want to do in the future. For now, we're focused on completing our mission and getting to White Sky. So we're going to do the traverse. We have the 2 fitness plus the 2 exploration. And we can now play Leaf in the Breeze, which says that when you traverse, dodge up to 3 cards. So we won't take any fatigue. And lovely. -1. So we have 3 successes, or 3 effort. And we get to add progress equal to our effort. That's going to be the 3 progress tokens we need in order to travel at the end of the round, after we rest. We did get a sun, though, so we lose another token. Go ahead and lose this one. For the purposes of this playthrough, let's just say that we pass. We're going to rest, so I can show you exactly how travel works. High Pimpot places the last juniper biscuit into the basket and hands it to you. There's no better way to begin a friendship than with a freshly baked biscuit, he says. The people of White Sky just love meeting new rangers. They always come bearing treats. High Pimpot winks and takes a biscuit for himself. You shoulder the basket and walk down the trail toward White Sky. As you do, the enticing aroma of the biscuits wafts up from the basket. You remember that you haven't eaten anything since breakfast. Your stomach growls. Surely they won't miss one or two. So it tells us to flip the biscuit delivery mission to the biscuit basket side, then choose a ranger to equip it. Well, it's just us, so we're going to be the one to equip it. It's both gear and food, and normally it would take 2 slots, but because of our pocket belt pouch, we're all good. We have enough room for it. So when you travel, you are going to completely wipe the board off here. So all of these cards that are along our path area are going to get discarded, and we're going to build a new path deck. Kwizi, though, is persistent, and so she is actually going to stay with us. She's basically tagging along with us to White Sky, whether we like it or not. Now, if you check out the map, we are here at Lone Tree Station, and we're going to be traveling along this path over to White Sky. So we need to find 2 decks of cards. We need to find the deck that represents that terrain, which is called Lakeshore. And then we need to find the deck of cards that corresponds to White Sky. We're going to take those cards and shuffle them together. And that's pretty much how you build every one of these path decks. So we're going to clear out Lone Tree Station. We're going to grab White Sky. We can flip it over to its backside. That's going to show us the setup instructions and anything that we need to read. So here we go. I have the 4 cards associated with White Sky. And here are the path cards, the Lakeshore ones. So we just shuffle these up together. That will be our new deck. So if we wanted to, we could decide to camp. And that would end the day, essentially. Ending the day would allow us to sort of, in this session, we would pack everything up, put our deck back. We would be able to swap in and out different rewards cards that we'll be getting later on. As you can see here, we still have quite a few cards in our deck, so I think we'll just continue on. Then all we have to do is draw 1 path card. Then we would refresh like we always do. Untapping everything, getting our energy back. And drawing a ranger card. And there we go. We're now in White Sky with this basket of biscuits. Looks like we can either hand them out or we can eat a few for ourselves. And once we have 0 biscuits, we'll be able to read another little passage. But other than that, we're free to just explore the city, wander around, and do what we like. But there you go. I'm going to stop right here so I don't spoil any more of the story. That is Earthborne Rangers. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.